So I'm going to start with some quotes. These are just to get your brain working. Give me a thumbs up when you've read each quote. The body doesn't lie, does it? Maybe. Okay. So a few practicalities. It's good to see you. Please give me your full attention. I don't mind if you're eating or moving around. Feel free to stretch, but please don't be emailing or on the phone. I'm going to keep this interactive, so it's not like TV. There will be some sort of things to do and some plenty of chance for questions, kind of in the middle at the end. Zoom. We don't need to go through that. It's not pre-COVID. I speak British English. Some of my students are used to American English, unfortunately. If you don't understand me, do this gesture and I'll slow down. I tend to speak quickly when I'm excited. So can we all practice that? Imagine you're stroking the sloth. Just give it a little stroke. That means do it before you hate me. Okay. Um, I'm not doing the Californian ICF today, so I probably don't have to give a trigger warning. And if you would like me to repeat something, your English is much better than my Icelandic. I know 3 words. So if you don't understand, you can give me the slow down sign or the B for BBC, which means please speak like the BBC. My students are mostly global and find that very helpful. Okay, so this is what we're going to do today. An overview of what embodiment is. What the hell is that? We're going to give you a definition in about 10 minutes time. A couple of things to take away. I tend to tell a lot of jokes. You may learn something about yourself. And as I said, it is interactive. Does that sound like you're in the right place? If not, you just go have a bath or something. I don't mind. I won't be offended if this is not what you want. We're not doing coach training. So if you want to like learn all this, come and train with us properly. You're not going to learn in an hour. That would be silly. It's not trauma therapy, so don't tell me about your mother. I'm not interested. There's no demonstrations today, but there's loads and loads on our social media, so you can see like 100 demonstrations. I'm not going to give you a sales pitch all the way through. I think that's obnoxious. At the end, I'll just say, here's some free stuff, and here's a course we're doing. So I'd rather just be useful for you for like 50 minutes, and then right at the end say, like, if you want to study with us, here's how you do that. So full transparency. If you haven't already said in the chat what you want, that is really helpful. So please type that in a short sentence, unless it's just like what I said, and then you could just type that or some what the are people like what the hell is embodiment? Is that yeah? Okay. It's going to be like a plate of spaghetti, and this is the spaghetti monster. My teacher calls his method the Jewish spaghetti method. And we gradually, I tell stories and jokes and give examples, but we're kind of gradually taking out the spaghetti. And at the end, I always have to tell my German students this. At the end, it will all be nice, straight spaghetti and everything's fine. But it will seem like chaos for about half an hour. I grew up in England, Irish immigrant family. My story is a little bit like the story of Western civilization, in that I was very clever cognitively, but actually not very happy and kind of a screw up in a lot of ways. Like I was drug addicted and suicidal when I was a teenager. And I actually ended up going, you know what? I'm not interested in academia, even though I was clever that way. And I was more interested in other things practically. Like, for example, I took up martial arts because I was told you could learn about yourself in a way that's very different than learning from books from martial arts. I ended up working with kids in outdoor education, working in a bunch of war zones. Eventually, I got sort of tired of being shot at and decided to come home, start a training company. That was nearly 20 years ago. That's young me. I did a big conference sort of a few years ago during COVID that sort of blew everything up. I'm founding this company, Embodiment Unlimited, also a charity in Ukraine. So I've been there several times during the war. So everything I say, I kind of mostly I train coaches. This is my main thing. Like I wrote the book on it, right? I train coaches. That's what I do. But I've also worked with all kinds of other clients, and people will get into like I've worked with organizations and charities and businesses. Mostly now I train other coaches about once or twice a year. I kind of still do a business. I've also very interested in culture. So I've worked in over 50 countries, not Iceland yet. So I'm not quite sure about your culture. I've heard some interesting things though. Maybe you could, tell me cultural embodiment is one of the things we can look at. Good. Let's maximize our learning. This is a good way of learning embodiment too. How would you turn up to this workshop if you knew everything already and weren't going to learn anything at all? Have you been on a workshop or training with that person? Do you know who I mean? Someone who turns up and I know everything. There's nothing to teach me. Maybe you're doing a corporate training and HR sent them and they're there with their arms crossed and you're like, oh God, this is going to be hard work. Sometimes audiences are like that. So show me you at your worst. How would you be sitting if you were just totally like, I know everything already? That's good. Someone just did resting bitch face. That's popular in the Slavic countries. Arms crossed, maybe leaning back, distracted, not present. Okay, so you get the basic idea of embodiment already. If you're, who's a trainer as well as a coach, works with groups, give me a wave. Yeah, great. And coaches, give us a wave. I guess it's everyone else. Yeah. So you get this, right? When a client walks in the room, you immediately see something. You see something about them. So I'll define it a little bit more. I'd like you to get a lot from today. So I would encourage you to be open and curious. How do you do that? Well, one would be with your body. Yeah. This makes sense. So become aware of how you are and choose to be open and curious, at least in the bodily way of doing that. So super practical for me and hopefully for you too. It's like if I say, how are you? That is a bodily question. Are you stressed? Are you happy? Are you high energy? Are you low energy? And you might say to me, I'm really relaxed. And I'd say, I don't believe you. Yeah, because the body is not matching what you're saying. And actually, here's an interesting thing. Look this way. Everyone touch their knees. Touch your knees. Everyone touch their knees. Okay, whose first instinct was to touch their elbows? I said knees, and you all speak very good English, don't you? But your first instinct is to listen to my body, not my words. Okay, I've done that experiment all over the world, and 90% of people, unless they're really sharp, go for the elbows. Totally normal. Okay, so it's not just you. So we understand the body is important. But let me ask you, like I Googled coaching, life coaching or business coaching, and every single picture, these are the pictures, they're all sitting down in chairs. And I thought, well, that's interesting because I do my coaching lying, standing, walking, upside down, all sorts of ways. Yeah. Leaning on people, grabbing them, making them do different exercises. I very rarely just sit in a chair. And there's one high five there, isn't there? In a sort of cheesy American way. But why do you think the body matters in coaching? Let's get your take on it. So in the chat, why does the body matter in coaching? You tell me. Because you're probably not totally stupid. You probably have some idea of this already. Most coaches do. Often coaches bring me in, they go, we know the body matters, but we don't quite know how to work with it. It's something like that. Energy, what does it mean? Like the Emperor from Star Wars. Californians talk about that a lot. It's a nice shorthand for embodiment sometimes. We'll say like energy is a certain way, right? What we really mean is this embodiment. So when we talk about energy, it sounds like electricity or something, right? When we talk about the body, it's really concrete. So I can say change your breath, and that will make sense. But if I say change your energy, you're just like, well, how? Does that make sense? So by saying body rather than energy, we just get a bit closer. But I understand what you mean. Yeah, great. Yeah, so thoughts manifest in the body. Yeah, I'm going to come into that. Yeah, it tells us about emotions. Okay, so some good things here. None of this shows how things affect people. Yeah, so there's more here, but that's a good start. I don't disagree with any of that. All right, so let's continue. Here's what I would say: the body is part of who we are, so we might as well work with it, right? It's part of who we are. Like most of you aren't ghosts. I had this trolls in Iceland, but I don't know about ghosts. It's accessible, right? So if I say change your mind, or even worse, change your spirit, you would say, how? How do I change my mind? But if I say change your breath so you're breathing more here in the chest, that might wake you up, right? Rather than me just telling you wake up, which is how. Some of you are drinking Red Bull, and that might be how. That's also an alternative to chest breathing. It works. That's the other one. It's just this is a technique that works. It's often the thing that people are missing. So my clients tend to be quite clever, like me when I was young, quite clever cognitively. So this is the thing that they haven't done. Yeah. The other one for me is if you want to make change stick, you have to involve the body, or the body will undermine any change you try and make. Okay, that will make more sense soon. Here's a quote from Nietzsche, embodied philosopher. Anyone agree with that? Agree, disagree? Something in it, right? There's something intuitively in that, I think. Yeah. It's like if you say to someone, calm down, right? Anyone ever tried that? Two guys, they're drunk, they're about to have a fit. Maybe that happens in Iceland too. Just telling them can't make any difference. So how do you calm someone down? Well, you can do that with your own embodiment. You can literally say to them, bananas, 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 and they'll calm down, as opposed to calm down, which probably won't work. Because again, it's not the words. Remember the elbows and the knees. It's the embodiment. Or you could give them a breathing exercise to do directly if that was possible, if they were open to that. Yeah. And this is our nature, right? You see the dogs and the humans, same shit, same wiring. You're not really different than a dog. It's why we like dogs. Yeah. So yeah. So if we think about coaching, would you agree that we're talking about learning? Coaching is a way of learning. Yeah, we're not just trying to do the same stuff, right? Often our model for learning is school. I don't know what schools are like in Iceland. Maybe they're like Finland, where they're a bit more open, but most of the world, it's about sitting down. It's just your brain. We tend to think of us, I'm my brain. It's like, no, you're all of you, but your brain's, you're not, your body isn't a brain taxi. You're not Mr. Spock. You're not a head on a stick, right? And have you ever had a date with someone who's like a bit of a head on a stick? Like, hello, I'm your date for this evening. I'm very attractive and dynamic. Yeah. Or I'm the leader of this company and I'm just a head on a stick. Like you feel like, right? Because there's more to being a human than being a head on a stick. This is actually intuitive. If someone said to you, I've read a lot of great books on kissing or on driving, what would you say? Would you think, wow, this person's an amazing lover, right? You're probably not. They've just read the books. Put it another way, why has Wikipedia not solved all the world's problems? Like on this phone is all the information the world has. It's a huge amount of information. Okay, but that clients don't need more information. Experience. Yeah, they've read the books. Like if I said, like I've just lost a load of weight, right? If I said, here's how you lose weight, you eat less calories and do more exercise, you'd go, oh, Sherlock, well done. Yeah. It's like it's not a theoretical thing. If I've got a trauma pattern, which means I use food as a comfort for eating, then that's the thing, right? Not that I lack the information. That's one example. Um, Another way of thinking about this would be about learning. So in English, we have the verb to learn, and it means too many things. It's too big a verb, right? It's too broad. So, for example, let's take the French language. It could be Icelandic or sport, anything. Learning about France is not the same as learning to speak French. And that's definitely not the same as learning to be French. Bottom right, there's a Japanese Aikido teacher who's lived in Paris for like 50 years and he got like, really French. He had like all like a French is he had this quality of Frenchness from living in Paris for 50 years. And there's a different type of knowing. Like if you've ever, I don't know, had a love affair in Paris and stayed up all night and in the morning went to get coffee and the waiter was really rude, but you'd had such a good time the night before you just didn't care and there was that sort of golden light coming up. Anyone had that sort of experience in Paris? Like that's a Parisian embodiment. There's a feel to that. It's not just Paris has a population of 6 million or, some facts. It's making sense. Give me a thumbs up if this makes sense. I'm giving you stories and poetry, and it will make logical sense as well. Here's the other thing is we always have a body. So even if someone's emailing, their embodiment is there, their way of being. Okay, their way of being is there. So if I'm in a good mood, I'm emailing happy emails. It looks like a cognitive thing, emailing, but it's impacted by my mood, for example. And moods could be very short term, like I don't know, I had low blood sugar, so I just drank some orange juice to kind of raise my energy. Yeah, or it could be very long term, and it's something like personality at that point. Okay? Personalities are like we're formed like these trees. Like right now all of you, let's put the attention on you. You're all doing something. What are you doing? You're doing you. You are a verb. So you're very curious and you're very open. Some are a bit more skeptical, a bit more evaluative. Both are fine. Here's the key question. Are you choosing that? Or is it Does that make sense? Like if you cross your arms, try crossing your arms. Okay, some of you don't have the habit of obedience, which is fine. I'm Irish. And then cross them the other way. It feels weird, right? Because that's habit. And it's not that it's really any better or worse. It's okay, but it feels weird. So embodiments like that, your own embodiment is totally transparent because it's like the taste of your own mouth. Make sense? Everyone else can feel it. As a teacher, I'm, sitting here and I'm looking, and some of you are sort of, oh, very amiable, and some of you are much more, yeah. And again, I don't know you. I should be careful to jump to conclusions. It might just be today. You may have been sugar like me or didn't get any sleep or something like that. So, there's layers here, right? Cultural layer. I don't understand what it is to be Icelandic yet. Actually, looking at you guys, I can start to guess. I'm going, what's the common pattern here that my German or Japanese students don't have? Right? Not all of you are Icelandic, I think, but there's yeah. So I'm going, okay, start to guess. There's a cultural embodiment. Does that make sense? Can you spot other Icelandic people when you're out and about? Like I can spot British people sometimes. I have an Irish family, but I'm English. And English feels like, hello, we're slightly embarrassed, slightly squashed in our embodiment. It was like, oh, terribly sorry. We in your country. Very embarrassing. It's this kind of feeling. Whereas Irish is much more here. It's much more like, how's it going? It's much more relaxed. Irish, there's a different embodiment there. Does that make sense? When I speak Russian, for example, "Иди сюда." Like Russian has to it. Russian, it's just like come here is what I said. So Russian has an embodiment to it, which is there, and there's trauma and history and all sorts of things. Not everyone. There are Russians who are more like Irish people. There's a tendency. Does this make sense? Yeah. Talking in these generalities just as a way of learning, just as a fun way. So your embodiment right now, what is it for? Interesting question, right? Because you probably worked this out when you were 5 years old. It could be for like love. Please love me. It could be for dominance. I'm very important and very clever, and I'm ICF Master Certified Coach, and I know things. So it says a different kind of embodiment, right? If it's not for learning right now, then it might be getting in your way. Yeah. Some people's embodiment is very available for learning, some people's less so. You know this. So what is embodiment? Let me define it. I promised you that. Being aware of the body as an aspect of who we are. So the body as subject, not object. So the body is part of our I. We could get really like Heidegger and Nietzsche at this point. We could really get into it. But the body is I, not it. So we're not objects. I know you're not objects because if someone treats you like an object, you don't like it, do you? No, because you know your body isn't an object, it's part of you. Yeah. How as bodies, not in bodies. People say my body, but that's a bit weird, isn't it? It's like, well, who's it's sort of some spiritual level, maybe that's true, but for practical purposes, it's like, no, you are bodily. Yeah. So how we are is the shortest definition. The manner of our relational being, if you're philosophical, the manner of our relational ontology. That's philosophical. I could talk philosophy all day, but I want to keep it practical today. So it's also a field of study and a type of intelligence. So a field of study includes these different fields. So martial arts, yoga, conscious dance. There's a lot of things that are included. And, people like me who are big into embodiment, they might have studied a bunch. Might have done some improv comedy and some yoga and, as I have. This is all in the book if you want to geek out. There's lots and lots of possibilities here. I'm not going to tell you all these now, but there's lots of things within that field of bodily, but not just physical. Okay, so yoga could be done very physically, but it can be done as a way to develop the person. If it's done physically, it's called exercise. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not embodiment. Get the difference? Traditionally, yoga was done as embodiment practice. Modern yoga is sometimes done as exercise, which is just physical because it's not developing the person. It's developing the hamstrings, which is fine, but it's different. Yeah. You can also think of embodiment as a type of intelligence. So this is from books, 8 kind of ways to break it down. This is a bit like emotional intelligence. So it's self, other, how am I? How do I want to be? How are they? How would I like to influence them? There's like a whole chapter of my book on each of these things because we can talk about state and trait, short term and long term. If you're still following me, you are very clever. So don't worry if you've got lost. All right. This is quite complicated. Way to key takeaway though is it's a way to be smart. It's not being fit or being skinny or anything like that. It's not body language. It's a bit more than mindfulness. Okay, because mindfulness is just awareness. Here we're looking at awareness and choice. If this all sounds very complicated, I'd say you kind of already know this, right? Like you dance with someone to get to know them. Children will interact without words. I once saw a Russian speaking and a Ukrainian speaking child, two Ukrainian kids, play with each other and they didn't understand each other, but they were able to play together quite easily. Yeah, and dogs know this, right? Like dogs don't speak. Right? If you speak to a dog, you could speak to it in English or Icelandic. The dog doesn't care, right? The dog just is an embodied creature. It just knows that you're friendly or dominant or something like that. Yeah, so this is kind of stuff you already know. But what I've done is made a career of making common sense a bit more exact. You know, again, we could get philosophical here. We could really get into it. I sometimes like to say you don't have a body, your body has you. Okay, should we take a breath? There's a lot of information there. Still with me? Little stretch, little move. That's one of the things I do with my students just to help them learn. Because you learn through the body. You might have built up some tension trying to get it all if you're a perfectionist. Okay, in the chat, any questions so far? I'm giving you like an hour of information in 20 minutes. There's a lot there, right? It's taken me a while to get this clear about what embodiment is, but the subjective study of the body, that would be not one definition. Yeah. As I said, it usually takes my students about a year to really get embodiment, like what it is. And so it's don't worry if it's we're in a disembodied culture, right? So it's not common. In some ways it's obvious, but in other ways it's like totally weird. Like we're in this hyper cognitive culture. Questions so far? Thumbs up if you're following my English, not too fast. Still getting me ish. Remember, you can ask me to slow down. I always forget. All right. So let's continue. So we're embodied in contexts. We have culture, we have biological context, like blood sugar or sleep or hormones, environmental context. Anyone find when they leave Iceland, they're different. Iceland's a very particular landscape by the look of things, right? Yeah, or if you're in a cathedral, you feel different. Yeah. Once I was in Moscow and I worked there a lot before the war. And then my colleague in Moscow came to visit me in England. She said, "Oh, you're much nicer here in England." I said, "Yeah, because Moscow's stressful and big and hard and cold and everyone's traumatized and dysregulated." It's like, of course I'm different, right? It's different context, socially and physically, different context. Yeah. Um, yeah, people are very disconnected from their bodies around the world. Actually, some places worse than others. Sometimes alcohol's part of that. Sometimes trauma is culture. There's places where people are more embodied, I would say. But I mean, everyone's unconsciously embodied, right? But are they consciously embodied? That's the key thing. Okay, so why coach with the body? You're probably, getting a bit of a sense of it now. I'll give you an example. If I'm teaching boundaries, I don't just want to talk about boundaries. A lot of my female clients, for example, have bad boundaries, so I'll push on them and I'll see how their boundaries are, and I'll test them and I'll work with them and I'll help develop the embodiment of boundaries. That's what I'm doing in the top two sessions there. Yeah, I have to do that online as well, by the way. You can do all this on Zoom. Sometimes it's very subtle. There's a video there. She just has a subtle shift that makes all the difference in her being. Like a little shift in the chest, for example. Like try that. If you just collapse a little bit there or puff up a little bit there, how do you feel different? Does it make sense? Like if you were to spend the rest of your life here or here or here, some of my American students are like, "Hi," they're kind of a little stuck. Yeah. Okay. I have a Vietnamese student. She's very like here. It's a missing piece for her. She can read all books in the world, but until she looks at that embodiment, it's not going to help. You can also change your own state. I had quite a difficult few hours before this. I won't go into the details, but quite a stressful couple of hours. My PA got the time wrong, and then my ex-wife's coming round, and it was like, God, all these different crazy things. And I was like, you know what? I want to be in a good state for this training, All right. So it's like not, some of that's just physical. Other, yeah, did I sleep last night? But some of it's like my choice. I can change my state. Also with my clients, tell me if this is true for you. Nearly all my clients turn up stressed for coaching. Is that true for you? Give me a wave. They don't turn up and say, "Hello, Mark, everything is fine." They turn, "Oh, sorry, I'm late. The thing happened." And it's the first thing on any coaching call, and you can steal this, you can just easy one you can take away. Is to say, "Okay, put your feet on the floor, relax your belly, take a breath." Okay, John, tell me again what you want. Yeah, I had a Dutch client earlier today. I said, just take a breath, relax your belly, sure, relax your eyes. All right, Martin, tell me what you want. What do you want? Because normally people waste 10 minutes of the session just blabbing because they're speaking from their stress, and the stressed brain doesn't work very well. Stressed people are stupid and conservative and mean, meaning they're unkind to themselves. They don't have any new ideas, and that the and the idea again, they don't have any new ideas. Code is about new ideas, right? Like otherwise, think about it. If they don't have new ideas, they're not going to see new possibilities. How do they have the new ideas though if they're in the old body or in the stress body? It doesn't work. So you change the body and whoa, new ideas. Here's something. Where do you have your best ideas? Where do you have your best ideas? Just think about it for a minute. I bet it's one of these. Walking in nature, in the shower, or on the toilet. Shower or bath. Who said those? Yep. Boom. Why? You're moving your body. If you're outside, you're in your body, wind, sun, whatever, rain, maybe. Yeah, you're moving your body and you're probably more relaxed. Same in the shower, you're feeling your body, you're in your body in the shower because it feels nice. You're more embodied and you're relaxed. Yeah. So it's not, I've done this again all over the world, and people are like those three. Sometimes I pretend I'm psychic. Yeah. So it's embodied, right? So if my job as a coach is to, so I'm just gonna write that down for the next talk I'm doing next week because that's a good one to say. Yes, if I'm as a coach wanting people to have new ideas, to generate insights, to have see new possibilities, well, asking them clever questions is great. But if I change their embodiment, and that could be as simple as standing up. Embodiment doesn't have to be like, let's hang upside down and do crazy yoga. It could be, let's go for a walk. It could be, you know what, John, stand up there, take a couple of deep breaths, shake it off. Okay, tell me again why your boss is an idiot and you need to quit your job. Yeah. And then what we find is things change. Does it make sense? You can all use that. Okay. Just get your clients moving, shaking, tapping, simple things. It depends on the client. Some clients you've got to be quite conservative, step out of the chairs enough. Other clients I can massage or get them to tap themselves, depends on the client. You've got to judge that. I've had clients who are very conservative. I've had clients who are tech company hippies. So it depends. So, what was I? Embodied intelligence. Yes. So people want to get something different, so they have to do something different. But here's the thing: if they're not someone different, they won't do anything different. So we have to go right back to that being level. So embodiment is one way to do that. There's others, but it's not the only way that works. So tool. Often people say to me, "Look, Mark, enough theory. Been here half an hour. I'm half an hour closer to my death. Just give me something I can use." And true story. Actually, your biggest tool is you. So go to gallery view, and put your cameras on if it's not on already. And I don't want you to say, but who here would you trust with a really delicate piece of coaching? Now, if they're all your friends, because everyone knows everyone in Iceland is different. Okay, but just based on their manner. And what about who would you trust if you were like, I want coaching to get a promotion? And who would you trust if you were like wanting coaching on intimacy? You like turn me into a sex goddess or god. Some people are juicy, right? They've got a kind of thing like, maybe you need someone really safe. I've had clients who are abused and they need coaches who are very flat, not spicy. Okay. Does it make sense? So this is partly about personal preference, but it's also about embodiment. Too late. Yeah, far too late. I don't know, man. It's never too late. So hope not. All right. Enough about that. So you are the biggest tool for your own embodiment. And again, it almost doesn't matter what you say. If you're well regulated, for example, you will calm your clients, they will have better ideas. People buy this. They buy how their coach makes them feel. I had a coach for years, which is very present, very kind, and he just asked me some really simple questions. He was like, "Is America like, hey, how's that working out for you?" Like really simple questions, like, "Is that working? Maybe try something else." But he was just really kind and really present. That embodiment. He'd done lots of Buddhist meditation, and he kind of his whole embodiment was one of kindness, right? Like that's more important than having read all the coaching books. Um, so you are the biggest tool. You I mean you can just keep it simple, really. Like things I often talk about is just awareness and choice. So helping clients bring awareness to how they are. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know. Like I had one client who was like this. Um, why are my employees scared of me? What's the problem? Why is everyone scared of me? And I'm like, well, John, can I show you how you just asked me that question? And I mirrored back to him his embodiment. He was like, yeah, that's a fair point. Like he just hadn't seen it. Like to him, that was normal. He was just very like raw kind of guy. And everyone was terrified of him. Yeah. And another nice point there as well is I was a bit scared of him. So my self-regulation was really important, right? Because I don't want to get intimidated by him. Yeah. So it's like my range is really important. Like if I can't be aggressive, I'm gonna get overwhelmed by an aggressive client. Like I need to be able to go there in my own embodiment, my own range. Okay, so this is the basics, is awareness, range, and choice. Again, this is a lifetime study. Like move how you want to be. I'll say people like walk how you want to be. You know, of course, the Aerosmith technique, walk that way. So it's a very simple technique. I'll get them walking, and I'll be like, they're like, I want to be more relaxed. I'm like, okay, let's start with your walk. Walk a bit more relaxed. Again, feel free to steal that. Not a big deal, right? Doesn't require esoterica. Yeah, we just get them in a different mode, being a bit more open. So pointing awareness to people, giving people feedback, centering is what we call the state regulation. That's so useful as a coach, so useful because otherwise clients are just rubbish. They're just stupid. Stressed clients are stupid clients, even if they've got a PhD and an IQ of 140. It's just not helpful. Yeah, and obviously as a coach, I don't want to be dysregulated myself, right? Yeah. Body storming is where we help them have different ideas. It's like brainstorming, but we use the body. So we get them moving and they have generated different, we get them moving in different ways, a bit more beyond the scope of this, but you can look it up on YouTube. And we get them moving in different ways and they go, oh, now I'm having different ideas. It's making sense. Simple version of that is just get them standing up, get them for a walk. They will get unstuck like people do a lot of the time. You can't expect someone in a chair to have a new idea. I mean, obviously for client reading, it's useful. Like if the client walks in and they're taking up a lot of space or they're very narrow, that's going to tell me something, right? Like, is the client much more, some cultures are like that, America, for example, or they're more like Japan or somewhere like that, where they're much more in, yeah. So like this is telling me something. And again, we should be careful, right? Because maybe this guy's just got massive testicles. That's entirely possible. Yeah. And maybe the guy on the right hurt his leg or something, right? This is entirely possible. So it's just a guess, but generally if I saw this, I'd say, okay, that informs me. Yeah. And again, a dog knows this. A child like my niece knows when I'm in a good mood, 5 years old. She'll take a look at me and be like, will Mark play? Yeah, or it's now not a good time. She can it's just standard. Good. You want to know some mistakes to avoid? So I think there's mistakes to avoid. So not working with the body at all, I'd say is a mistake. You don't have to be super tantric or something, but some getting the body involved. If you are, is anyone here from a yoga background or meditation background? Okay, not a little bit. Okay, so sometimes I have to de-hippie my students a little bit. They're a little bit too a new age. A lot of the Californian teachers are like this. They're a little bit too Californian. Okay. Don't make it weird. So if you make it normal to move and work with the body, it's normal for your client. It's the best. If you're relaxed, they're relaxed. Like when I work with the body, I just totally at home, so they feel at home. It's not a big deal. You know. As I said, don't be that say scared, not sacred. I mistyped it. Yeah. I'd say don't be too scared to work with the body. Sometimes people have done a trauma workshop and now they're like terrified to work with the body because there's trauma in the body sometimes. And I'd say, yeah, you need to be trauma informed, trauma aware, but Like this, it's kind of like some of the Americans are getting so sensitive with it. It's really silly. It's like they get this consent and then there's like this trauma informed and trauma deformed. They're getting just really silly with this. So particularly in cultures where that is just not normal, it's just weird. So maybe I've got a different standard because I work in Ukraine sometimes. Managing the physical stress response, like centering. This is a centering technique I use. Balancing the body, relaxing the body. Super, super simple thing to do with a client before a session. Yeah. Cool. Should we do that one? Let's do that one together. Let's do that one together. Real simple, real simple. Okay, if you're willing to join in. So notice how you are now. Maybe you're still fine. Maybe you're like, whoa, it's been a lot of information. I'll put your feet flat on the floor. Find your hips in the chair. Sit upright, but in a relaxed way. Relax your mouth, relax your belly. Balance your posture. Couple of breaths so that your belly moves as you breathe. And think of someone who makes you smile. Say, ah. Last instruction, relax while expanding. Okay. Open your eyes if they're closed. That took 1 minute. How do you feel now? Who feels a little bit better than before? Like a little bit happier, maybe more creative? Yeah, most of you, right? None of you are like, that was horrible. Don't do it again. Like generally I do that with my client at the beginning, or if they get stuck, or maybe at the end, if they've got, Mark, this has been really emotional because the body brings up stuff, and now I've got a big meeting, a big sales meeting. I'm like, okay, let's just do a quick centering before the end of the session. I might do this myself before the session if I'm stressed. Okay, there's lots of uses for that. That's like tool number one. I do a coach training, and that's like tool number one. We teach like 6 tools. That's like number one because it's just real easy. I would say this, you don't have to remember the specifics, but if I never see you again and you just want to um like give someone something really practical at the beginning of the session so they come up with a better question, do something like that. I find if the client has a better question, the coaching is half done. Have you found that, coaches? Like if they're like, why is my wife an idiot? We're not going to have a good session. But if they're like, how can I communicate more constructively with my wife? Okay, now we're going somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Ex-wife in 30 minutes time, real example. Okay, so life, eh? Life, we get all right, actually. Yeah, practice is the other thing I teach clients. I teach clients how to do practices. Okay. It wasn't actually Aristotle, he's often quoted with it. But give them things to do, little practices to take away for better boundaries or to find passion or to let go of stress, whatever it is. Lots of reasons I could say why now. I think the world's crazy and the anchor of the body is very helpful. Technology is making everyone worse. And if, by the way, if you don't do embodied coaching, you will be replaced by AI within 1 to 2 years. So if you're not doing coaching that AI can't do. So AI is really good with information, but not embodiment. So I'd say, yeah, how are you differentiating yourself? If you're just asking clever questions, well, AI is going to ask much clever questions than you. I'm sorry. We need some kind of edge. So I think I'm at least 10 years away from being replaced. Yeah, if you want to see coaching, I've got loads of demos on 1 minute demos on Instagram. The kids love those. And longer adult length ones on YouTube. Okay, so if you want to see like embodied coaching in action, I thought because we only had an hour, a bit less than maybe, rather than today, I'll give you the links there. I'm going to give you some other free resources and stuff in a minute. But if you just want like, if you see to actually see this, because sometimes people will say to me, Mark, that's great theory, but what does it look like? Well, this is what it looks like. And these are, real people I'm coaching, like in my workshops and just randomly. Free stuff. Who wants some stuff? Yeah. So if you want free stuff, embodimentunlimited.com, that's the website. The podcast is free, 600 episodes. Instagram, I mentioned. There's a free book on embodiment. It's my first book, sold thousands of copies, and it's free at our website, embodimentunlimited.com. So that's the free stuff. If you hate me, there's other people out there. There's other people that are doing embodiment, not loads, but for example, in California, Strozzi Institute are good. Wendy Palmer was very good, deceased now. Dylan Newcomb's very good. So there's other good people. This is like a whole, in terms of coaching, I think we're one of the best. Wendy was good. Strozzi's still good. He's in California. Yeah, and if you want like actually to train in this, then we have a course in February, and we do a little offer of $100 off. So I'll put that in the chat, and that is available this week. I think we've got like 30 people booked on the course. There'll be like 200 by February by the time it starts. That's our sort of main train the trainer course. So it does take me more than 1 hour to teach coaches. It takes me about 6 months. So, just over the years, that's what we found, how long it takes kind of thing. So I'm going to leave time for questions. See the final things. People asking me to the slides. No, you can't have the slides. But thank you. I appreciate your time. There's that offer again if you want it. And thank you to ICF Iceland for coaching me. Hopefully, I will see you on holiday next year. If you just want to say hi and have a coffee while I'm on holiday, do feel free to WhatsApp me or send me your number on Instagram. And it's always nice to meet locals. So yeah, any questions? But otherwise, thanks for having me.
Endilega nýtið tækifærið og hendið á hann spurningum ef það eitthvað sem hefur vaknað núna. Hann talaði hratt og fór víða og það hlýtur bara eitthvað að vera að berjast í höfði og hjarta núna. Nýtið tækifærið.
Okay, Alma, soul in Spanish. Beautiful name. What about mirroring the client with your body? Yeah. So if it's called empathy, and if you're not a psychopath, you will do it. Okay. Embodiment can allow that to happen a bit more efficiently. I.e., if you're stressed, it won't happen so much, right? I would say if you're doing it as a trick, like an NLP trick, it's creepy and weird. But if you're allowing it the natural empathy to happen, you will naturally mirror. So I'd say, yes, that's a good thing to encourage, but not to force. And if you're not mirroring your client at least a little bit, something's gone on in the rapport, right? The relationships break down because just naturally I'll start mirroring people that I like, and vice versa. So I'd say it's more a thing to be aware of rather than a thing to force. But yeah, that's a natural mammalian response. Even dogs do it. So yeah, nice thing to ask about. Good. How to embody love? Yes, David. I am an expert in this. Having been around many war zones and been around quite a lot of hate, I got very curious about what the opposite of that was. It does have a shape. So imagine if I said to you, I love you. That would be strange, right? So, or if yeah, or like Gollum, my precious. Yeah. So what it is the opposite of that. I'm just giving you this as a riddle. What is the opposite of that? Something like what I showed you earlier, relaxed expansion. Yeah. If I'm not relaxed, I'm probably not loving. That's more anger or fear or something like that, right? And if I'm not expanding, I'm just collapsing. That's more action. But if I'm relaxed and expanded, I might not force this, but I might encourage it. I could encourage myself into a more loving state. I could do that directly through the body. I could use imagery. I could use mantras. There's lots of things I can use. Is there a sense of receiving involved? To me, love has more of a giving quality, more of an expansive out, but that might be my prejudice. And one of the things I can investigate with a client is their version of love. So like if I said to you, is love more no or more yes? Which would you say?
Yes.
The correct answer is both. Okay. So think about it. No is just as loving as yes. If my teenage nephew says, I'd like to smoke some drugs, I would be like, no, that's not great. Let's not smoke drugs. Maybe we can find an alternative for you to relax. Yeah. So that's a loving thing to do, right? But we tend to think of yes as loving. Okay. Hashtag in parenting. Yeah. Rather than realizing that boundaries are also loving. So in some ways, when you tell me, what is love? Sorry, that song's in my head now. You know that song? What is love? I'm showing my age. If you tell me what love, I'd also be really curious, like what your version is, right? Like everybody show me their version of embodying love. What is it?
This is Iceland. So knitting a sweater is
knitting a sweater. But show me, what's the embodiment of knitting a sweater? For some of you, it's self-love, right? Like we have a pose we use for clients around self-care. I'm doing a whole 4-week course on the embodiment of self-care currently, actually. Yeah, like that's That's a thing a lot of clients struggle with is self-care. So we have, if someone's like, I really should take care of myself, but they're actually just really angry with themselves. They're really judgmental of themselves. So I get them giving them a bit of self-care hug. And at first they're like, oh, this is weird and uncomfortable and I don't like it. I'm like, yes, that's the point. Right? It's like new shoes to wear in. And then they breathe and they relax and usually they cry. And then they go, actually, I really need this. This is really good. And then they take it home as a practice. One of the nice things about embodiment is I can say, go home, practice that 1 minute a day. Yeah. And as a coach, I might have to love them until they can love themselves, right? There's more complex than just telling them to do something. I might have to treat them as lovable, right? Like see them as lovable. There's all sorts of coaching aspects. But self-care poses, like I'd say 50% of my clients need that. Anyone else got clients who are hard on themselves? Yes. Recommend walking coaching sessions. Not for everyone all the time, but I like them because it keeps me slim. Thank you for noticing. But B, I find I just have better ideas as if I'm moving, and dancing's probably a bit much, right? So walking keeps me moving. I find my clients are often stressed. It gets them out of the office, which is usually associated with their stress. So when they go for a walk, and they might be walking in the Thames or in Hyde Park or something in London, and it just kind of seems to help them relax. So I generally do audio coaching walking as my standard. Sometimes I do the first one on Zoom so I can see the client's embodiment. Like if I've not met them, I might want to see them. And then I ask for, like a shot where I can see quite a lot of them. And then once I've got a sense of them, I usually go to walking. But there's not a hard and fast rule. You can do coaching. If I had a very stressed client, I might do the coaching lying down. I might do the coaching in a chair because anything else is weird to them, right? Like, there's no rule here. It's just postures are just ways of moving embodiment. So this is, what position do you go to sleep in? Let me guess. Is it horizontal? Yes. Icelandic people aren't that weird. Yeah. So you might be weird, but not that weird. So everyone sleeps horizontally because that changes your embodiment to being more internal and more sleepy. Right? Have you ever tried to sleep standing up? It is possible, but it's very, very hard. Some people have medical conditions where they have to sleep sitting up, and it's really tricky because that embodiment isn't congruent. Make sense? Whereas if I want to be more awake, I might sit up. So we can up and down regulate ourselves with the breath, with posture, with movement, with all these things like breathing in the chest versus breathing in the belly. Someone will say, what's the right breath? And I'm like, well, for what? Are you trying to get turned on? I can show you a breath for that. But, that's a different breath than I would teach my stressed corporate client, right? Or my sleepy, slightly depressed client. I might want to get them angry. Getting a depressed client angry can be quite good because it gives them energy. Yeah. So do you see what I mean? Like, I don't generally want to get people angry, but there's occasionally, gets me in that mood, a bit more aggressive. So, does embodiment coaching work in a war zone? Not if we're in a bomb shelter and we can't walk very far. So yes, there are it's very annoying doing trainings in bomb shelters. We generally train the Ukraine team in Poland now because it's much more comfortable. We realized that like it was better to get a train ticket for all the Polish team, the Ukraine team to Poland than to me to Ukraine, just because people don't learn much when they're super stressed. So
what about teams? Like how do you coach teams with embodiment?
Big question. It would take me 6 months to teach you, but basically using all the same things. So we could do centering with a team, for example. We could also get a team moving together. If they were open to that. That's very synchronizing. We could also look at the embodied types of teams. So we might use a breakdown of something like 4 elements we use. And then we'd say, okay, where are the sales department? Where is the HR officer? Where is the accounts team? And we'd look at the different embodiments in the team. And we'd even get people to like step into each other's embodiments. It's really good for empathy. So in the absence of 6 months with you, I hope that satisfies you for 1 minute. Give you a few little pointers. Get them moving is a big thing. Any other questions? Last call. Okay, well, thanks for having me. And if you do want to train with me, as I said, you got a code on that for a week to get $100 off. No catch, just $100 cheaper than other people will get it. So that's there if you want to come and do some real work with us. And as I said, if you've got no money or whatever, you can do lots of free stuff as well on the internet. We've given away loads of free stuff. Good. How do I say thank you in Icelandic?
Takk.
Takk.
Tak, just like other Scandinavian languages.
Takk
Tak.
fyrir.